So let's answer some Reddit questions about being agender. So I am always interested in what's going on out there in the wild world of the internet when it comes to ace, arrow, and agender experience. I want to know what people are curious about. I want to know what questions people have. I want to know what parts of our experiences are stumbling blocks for people to just like embracing themselves and loving themselves and feeling empowered to be who they are. So I did something that may not be recommended. I went to Reddit. I went to the Agender Reddit and just kind of looked through the questions there to sort of see what themes popped up. And I grabbed 4 questions that I thought were really good questions, really useful questions that folks out there who are questioning whether or not they're agender or are having trouble accepting and embracing their agender identity, questions that they might ask themselves and could use some answers to. So here are some answers to Reddit questions on being agender. Why did I say it like that? Do I have to look agender to be agender? No, there isn't a specific look you have to adopt, an agender look, in order to be agender. This question gives us an opportunity to talk about 3 important parts of gender experience: gender identity, gender presentation, and gender attribution. So gender identity is the experience you have, the understanding inside yourself, within your heart and your mind and your body about what your gender is. Gender identity is an entirely personal thing. It's something that you understand and figure out for yourself, but it is within you and it is the thing that you understand yourself to be. Now, for agender folks, that could mean that you have no gender at all, and it is like the understanding of not experiencing something, but still, that's how you understand yourself, and that's your gender identity. Gender presentation is how you choose to present your body to the world. Now, that can sometimes be the expression of your gender. You want your gender presentation to reflect how you understand your gender. So, if your gender is male, you can adorn your body in ways like by the clothes you wear, or the way you wear your hair, or the facial hair that you grow, or whatever. That sort of affirms your gender identity. But that doesn't always have to be the case. Sometimes your gender presentation, what you show on your and with your body to the world, can not necessarily be aligned with what your gender identity is. So this is something that I kind of experience as an agender person. I identify, my gender identity is agender. I don't have a gendered experience internally, but I am most comfortable moving through the world in presentation that is more masculine. That includes masculine things, masculine visual cues. That's just the presentation that I am comfortable with. That presentation is what I like, but that doesn't change or devalue or erase what I experience as my gender identity. Finally, there's gender attribution. And gender attribution is what other people see you as and assign your gender to be. So attribution is like when you're going through the world and somebody looks at you and takes in your visual cues, and they make decisions about what that means based on their socialization or just, how they understand gender. So what's important here is that presentation and attribution don't validate identity. What you want to look like is your choice, and what other people assume is a reflection of their socialization and whether or not they're curious and empathetic enough to engage you before making decisions about you. I think in all cases here, the only thing that makes you agender is that you understand yourself to be agender. That's it. You choose the presentation that feels affirming to you, whatever that is, but there's no agender look that you have to achieve in order to be agender. What do you think about pronouns and being agender? So I think sometimes the assumption when someone is non-binary or identifies as agender that we automatically have to go into the they them bucket or the neopronouns bucket. That, once you have decided
I am non-binary, I am agender,
we magically zoopity zoop zoom into they themness. And that everybody who doesn't adopt a binary gender identity is just going to use a neopronoun or be a they them. And that is just not the case. We can, regardless of our gender identity, whether we are one of the binary genders or whether we identify in the non-binary and agender space, we can use whatever pronouns make the most sense to us. If you are agender and he, him pronouns make the most sense, then those are the pronouns that you use. If you are agender and she, her pronouns make the most sense, use those. I'm agender and really jive on they, them. I like being a they, them. So they, them are the pronouns that make the most sense for me. You can even feel free to use as many as you'd like. Maybe your pronouns are he, they, she, they, her, they, him. You can use whatever pronouns make the most sense for you. You use the pronouns that are the most affirming for you. And don't feel like just because you are adopting a non-binary gender identity that you are forced into making decisions about using a gender neutral pronoun. Feel free to use what makes the most sense and feels the best for you. Am I still valid as agender if I only socially transition? Absolutely. There is no part of trans experience across the board that requires medical transition in order to be valid. Your transness or non-binariness or agenderness, whichever experience you're having, and they're all looped under the trans experience in a broad way. Whatever experience you are having, you are not required to seek out, want, or have medical transition in order for that experience to be valid. If just socially transitioning, changing pronouns, or changing your name, or changing your gender presentation, if those things feel affirming and help you fully live your gender identity, then that's all you need. If medical transition is what's going to get you to that place where you're feeling like you're fully living and embodying your gender identity, then that's what you need, and you can go for that and do that. Don't feel like there is a monolithic trans experience that requires you to have like certain components. Like transness doesn't require gender dysphoria. It can absolutely and does often include it, but it doesn't require it. Transness doesn't require medical transition. Does it sometimes and often include that? Sure, sometimes it does, but it doesn't have to. Your gender identity and your experience is yours, and whatever you need to feel the most affirmed and complete within yourself is what you need, and other things you just don't. Can I be agender and still refer to myself as male? Ooh, I can hear the gatekeepers warming up for their comments in the comment section. But I'm going to answer affirmatively, yes. You can still be agender and still refer to yourself as male. Now, you could be thinking, well, how can you be agender and still refer to yourself as male? If you're agender, you are not any gender, and male is a gender. Identity is a lot more complicated than dictionary definitions of words that you can pull up from your glance at dictionary.com. How we experience things like gender and sexual orientation are enormously complicated. And the language that we have available to us to describe those things fail to fully encompass the complexity and the intricacy of those experiences, and they fail to really capture the full wide spectrum of what's possible in the gray areas of those spaces. So often we will sometimes take words that we have and group them together in ways based on how the world generally understands them to try to get as close as we can to our experience. And this question resonates with me very deeply because it speaks a lot about my personal agender experience. I identify as agender. In contemplating my life and my experience, I don't really deeply connect or feel like either a man or a woman. I don't feel like gender has a lot to do with me as a person. However, I can recognize that there are parts of my experience and there are sections of my experience and kind of like how I'm perceived in the world, how I've moved through the world that feel more male than not. And so there are there are ways that I can talk about my experience that I could describe as being both agender and male. One example for me is particularly my experience in the gay male community. I came out as gay when I was 18, and I operated in that space for my whole adult life. And within the gay male community and the bear community, there are significant parts of my experience that I can look at and understand it as like I had a male experience in those spaces. So like those parts of my life and those parts of myself that I still carry with me, I can understand them as male. I'm still a gender because that's how I deeply understand my own gender experience, but those two things can exist together. They're not mutually exclusive. It's similar to how people like in the asexual community might say that they are asexual and gay, for example, because the relationships that they inhabit are homoromantic, but for a shorthand and for easy understanding in the world, you just say that your experience is a gay experience. You're asexual and gay. That those two things can be together, even though dictionary definition wise they're mutually exclusive. But in reality, in the lived complex experience of human beings, they're not mutually exclusive. What is important in this question is, I think, to one, not listen to people who are super gatekeepy about words. People who are going to be gatekeepy about words are really just reinforcing some very strong structural oppressions that harm us all. Defining people and putting people into boxes that are very clear and you can't get out of them and they're strict and rigid. That is what oppressive structures do to us all the time to sort of to keep us and prevent us from living our full lives. So don't do that to other queer people. Appreciate that queer experience when you are living outside of those rigid boxes and norms. It's messy and it's sometimes contradictory, and multiple things can be true at once, and you can hold two things in your hand at the same time and be both of them, even though if on the surface they may look like they don't make sense together. Allow people that space and allow yourself that space to live in that like messy queer space. If someone is using language that is confusing to you in that way, if someone says I am agender but I also consider myself male, instead of immediately saying no, that can't be true, ask, well, what does that mean for you? Curiosity is a wonderful friend in these cases. Find out why those two words resonate with that individual. Use the language in whatever configurations that make the most sense for you, that describe your unique experience as accurately as you can describe it. If you take anything away from this video, what I hope that you take away is that your experience of being agender is yours to define and control. You get to decide what it is you experience. You get to decide how you present to the world. You get to decide what language you use to talk about yourself. And you get to decide what language others are going to use to refer to you. Allow yourself to be empowered to be agender in the way that you understand yourself to be agender. No one else has the right to do that, and you deserve that power over your own experience.